Good evening, everyone. I'm Eric Asensio, the Chair of the Housing, Land Use, and Economic Development Committee. And as on September 22nd, Major Adams issued Executive Order 210 extending the state of emergency through December 21st. Accordingly, boards are able to continue to act under the state of emergency section of the video conferencing law, chapter 56 of the law of 2022, part WW. This allowed the board to continue remotely. Minutes and video recording will be made available on our website. If you're calling into the meeting on the conference, controls were joining from the line or cell by calling dial-up number. To hear all available commands, enter ** on your phone, *6 to mute or unmute yourself, *9 to virtually raise your hand. Bronx Community Board 7 has the right to remove and or ask a member of the public to leave a meeting or block participation of anyone who engages in inappropriate conduct, including but not limited to obscene or offensive images or language, personal attacks, threats, or any other behavior that reasonably impedes the orderly administration of the meeting. Repeated offenses will be reviewed by the Board Executive Committee or any other assigned committee for a ban. The amount of time to be objectively determined by the above committee of the participant in the event of repeated disruptive behavior. If in-person outbursts or attacks continue, this will be considered disturbing the peace and the authorities shall be summoned. Everyone besides the speaker will stay muted throughout the meeting. After each presentation is over, I will inquire if committee members have questions. Committee members will signify that they have a question by pressing the raise hand button on your screen or request to speak to the chat or when the chair opens the floor. Members of the public who have joined through the online link will be able to ask questions and make a brief statement on the item after each presentation and after the committee has had an opportunity to ask clarifying questions. By pressing the raise hand button on the screen or request to speak to the chat or when the chair opens the floor. Only those recognized by the chair of the committee will be allowed to speak during the allotted time. We will stay on topic with the agenda item. Any other item will be acknowledged by the chair in your business or addressed at the next meeting, granted there is time and committee agrees on the topic. Following the question, discussion, and public comment portion, the committee will begin their discussion after each presentation agenda item and will conclude with the decision to vote on a recommendation. When the agenda is finished, the meeting will be adjourned. If there are any questions related to the meeting software or to our process, please use the chat function or raise hand function now or contact the district manager. So today's agenda is pretty short, but a good one. We have a presentation from an update from the Kingsbridge Armory. And we will have a presentation from Douglas Development about the housing lottery at 2850 Webster Avenue. And of course, updates from the agencies. So I will start with attendance. Eric Asensio is here. Myrna Calderon.
Myrna Calderon is present.
Sandra Erickson.
Sandra Erickson, present.
Thank you. Mabubo Jewel. Edgar Ramos.
Edgar Ramos, present.
Helene Reed.
Helene Red, present.
And Barbara Stronson.
Barbara Stronson is present.
Great, thank you. I think the minutes were circulated. Did everyone get a chance to review those minutes from our November 1st meeting?
Yes, I did. I'll offer a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Sandra?
I seconded. Barbara?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So we can move on. We don't have any previous business, so we can move on to our present or update from New York City EDC about the Kingsbridge Armory. I have to say that I was able to attend the workshop back in November, the first one, and which seems like so long ago, but it was just less than a month ago, I guess. So we want to hear what you guys found from the committee, from the community.
Yeah,
And
I'm
see
happy
how
to kick it off.
we're moving forward, yeah.
Well, first, thank you, Eric, for coming. Edgar, you were there as well. I believe Brian, you were there as well. So thank you, everybody, for coming to the workshop. It was a great event. It was actually 1 month ago yesterday, I think November 5th. And thank you, Jade, for staffing a table. We had a table, the Community Board 7 had a table at the workshop, so we really appreciate that. Today we're going to go through, Inder's going to go through what we've done since then and spend most of the time talking about what we heard at the first public workshop, and then we'll end this by talking about what we're doing between now and our second public workshop. So we're having 4 total, but we want to give you a sense of the work that we're doing leading into that workshop. So I'll turn it over to Inder.
Thanks, Nate. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, for sure. So this presentation will just cover or just recap the press event that we had last month, followed by the public workshop, and then talk about next steps and some of the smaller group discussions that we're having between the first public workshop and the next public workshop on January 21st. So on November 1st, the EDC, the co-chairs, local elected officials, and community working group members launched the official kickoff for Together for Kingsbridge project at the steps of the Kingsbridge Armory. As shown on the photo, there are folks from CB7 and folks on this call who were at the press event. So thank you for those of you who did show up and were part of this celebration. And the celebration focused on Councilmember Sanchez announcing a $5 million city capital commitment for the Armory. So this will help pay for capital costs within and around the Armory moving forward. And then followed by the press event, we had press within newspapers and local magazines. So various articles about the $5 million commitment to the Armory, on the press event, and just on the project as a whole. And then later that week, so on November 5th, we had the first public workshop. It was attended by close to 200 people. It was a very lively event, great energy. And as you can see on the top right photo, there's we had kind of a poster with the Armory, and folks were writing kind of their vision or their values of the Armory within that silhouette. So there were a series of activities from different stations that people went to small group discussions, and then a larger 30-minute group presentation introducing the project. So the goals of that engagement was to acknowledge the past development attempts, communicate this is a new, exciting, and different moment, and seek to understand the values of the Kingsbridge residents and of the Bronx as a whole. And as I mentioned, folks filled out worksheets. We had exhibit boards focusing on the history, both the history of just the organizing around the Armory, but also the Armory building itself. And then small group discussions on folks' values, whether their own values and just what they want to see in the Bronx. As you can see in the bottom left photo, there are questions around my favorite thing about the community was X, Y, and Z. Kingsbridge is strong because, and then what are the things that we want to see in the community? And then, as I mentioned earlier, there was an interactive mural where folks were able to write in sort of their desires or their vision for the Armory. And just a recap of the numbers, the workshop lasted 4 hours. There were about 180 to 200 participants. Of those, over 100 folks filled out worksheets. There were 4 facilitated discussions, 2 in Spanish and 2 in English. 11 community survey and input boards, and then we gathered over 450 plus sticky notes across all of the stations where people were providing their input. The themes based on the conversations we had and the sticky notes that we collected was focused around community values and strengths, concerns and ideal situations around the Armory's redevelopment and Armory programming. And some of the most mentioned values that we heard from the workshop include togetherness and mutual support, a collective economy, strong work ethic and working class values, diverse, inclusive of all cultures, resilience through creativity and resistance, family, kindness and compassion towards others, and educational and vocational progress. So these were things that we heard from folks that sort of was top of mind in terms of what they value and what they want the Armory to represent. And when I take all of these together, it means that the Bronx is a diverse community that's hardworking and has strong working class values, and that the Armory needs to be able to reflect them, provide a space that supports and helps stabilize families and households in the Northwest Bronx and across the borough as a whole. Some of the concerns that we heard were fears around gentrification and displacement, that the Armory would end up going to the highest bid, that profit would be prioritized over people. We asked people ideas to mitigate these concerns, and these were the top 4 mentioned ideas. First, community ownership of land and profits, more community involvement and outreach, an anti-displacement stance, and thoughtful and intentional development. And then in terms of programming needs within the Armory, the 7 things we heard the most were the Armory needs to value education and vocational training for all ages. So it becomes a space that helps develop someone's career over the lifeline of their career, both in terms of workforce development, but also supporting small businesses over external interests. So being a space that grows local businesses, that supports and incubates startups and smaller organizations within the Bronx, that provides access to healthy food and is key to a sustainable regenerative economy, one that's culturally connected to the Bronx, and a place for youth. One of the things that we have been hearing a lot of is just how young the neighborhood is, and just the lack of recreational facilities for folks, specifically around this time of year where the weather gets cold and it's not as pleasant to be outside and be at one of the parks outdoors. So looking ahead, as I mentioned, we completed our first public workshop in November. We have our second public workshop scheduled for January 21st. We're hoping then that the Armory will reopen and the asbestos would be abated so that we can start initiating community tours and taking y'all around the Armory and folks around the community around the Armory to show them what it looks like on the inside, which will then make it a lot easier to imagine or reimagine what could happen down the road. And then in March, we'll have a third public workshop until our vision launches in April. So kind of describing how all of this input and all these conversations we're having fits into the larger engagement process. So the first public workshop really just introduced the project and centered in on community values. Between the first public workshop and the second public workshop, we're having various discussions, smaller group discussions with stakeholders across the neighborhood and across the borough to gather their thoughts. And then during the second public workshop, we're going to introduce or present what we've been hearing over the last couple of months and have a deeper discussion around values, but also discussing the existing conditions around the Armory. So the state of repair and a ballpark estimate of how much those repairs would cost. And then we would introduce some precedents based on what we've been hearing for what can happen in the Armory. So they'd be based on other Armory projects across the city and across the country, but also other adaptive reuse projects that align with the community's values. So with some of the things we're hearing around advanced manufacturing and bringing in a tenant that provides middle-class jobs for folks who may not have a college degree, and then hearing stuff about, and we've also been hearing about like recreational facilities and community facilities. So showing precedents of adaptive reuse projects that align with these values and goals. And then at the third public workshop in March, we're going to introduce some adaptive reuse scenarios just basically architectural concepts to show how everything could fit within the armory and essentially how much it would cost, so that we all have an idea of what that estimate is as we move towards the final vision document and then eventually to the RFP phase around this time next year. And as I mentioned earlier, we've been having these small group discussions and focus groups with various neighborhood stakeholders. Last week, we went to the Kingsbridge Heights Community Center and spoke to a teen organization pictured on the right. We're going to have conversations with folks around the Bronx who specialize in health and wellness, with higher education and K through 12 education. We've had a couple of conversations with Kingsbridge residents, and we have one scheduled with various tenant organizations or representatives from tenant organizations around the area. This Saturday, we're meeting with small business owners, faith-based organizations. We've had discussions with labor, and then connecting with folks who provide social services, who represent senior interest groups, and then cultural interest groups that really capture the racial and ethnic diversity of the neighborhood. And essentially, so these stakeholder-based conversations will include the following organizations. So for workforce and economic development, it includes things like the South Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, the Bronx Overall Economic Development Corporation, the business improvement districts in the area, and merchants. For education, it includes all the higher education academies as well as local public schools. And then it also includes hospitals and health centers. For cultural discussions, we're focusing on destinations within the Bronx, such as the Bronx Zoo and the Botanical Gardens and the International Salsa Museum, to understand the New York Public Library, to understand the context in which they operate in and how they can better serve the folks of the Bronx. And then, as I mentioned, we'll be talking with tenant associations and local residents. Over the next week or so, we have a lot going on. So Thursday, we have the Isla School engagement with Dominicanos USA. On Saturday, we have a small business focus group that will be hosted by the congressman and the council member. And then next Tuesday, we have Wednesday, we have our third community working group meeting. We also have a residents focus group. The day after that, we're meeting with street vendors. And then that same day, we'll be at the 52nd Precinct Council. And then on December 20th, we'll have a healthcare focus group with some of the hospitals and the health clinics in the area. And then that will take us to January 21st, where we'll have our second public workshop. And that concludes our presentation.
Great, thank you. And that was a lot
That
of
was
information. Sounds like you guys gather a lot of information from the community.
That's right.
Edgar, you have a question?
Yeah, in your presentation, you mentioned you guys discussed with labor. I was just wondering what that comprised of, or what was that comprised of?
That one's still being scheduled, Edgar. Actually, we're putting together the focus group right now with the Central Labor Council.
Okay, no, because I thought he mentioned labor earlier. I'm sorry.
Is there a specific group that you think we should speak to?
Well, I was hoping that the Bronx Board of Business Agents be involved in that.
Okay.
Which is probably through Central Labor Council.
Okay.
I guess you would contact them.
Did you say the Bronx Board of Business
Agents?
Business Agents. Okay, we'll make sure to bring that up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Helene?
Hi, I was listening, wait, let me turn this mic on. I was listening, I have a couple of questions. One thing was mentioned about, people was asking questions about, they don't want it sold to the highest bidder, but normally that happens sometimes. How would y'all prevent that from happening? That's the first question.
So the way Helene, we do the process is when we introduce an RFP, we get a number of proposals, and then we're gonna work to make sure that those proposals reflect the goals that are in the vision plan. So that's the way the process works is a team of folks from EDC will make sure that this actually, the proposals that we get, one, they're financially feasible, so that you can get the project off the ground, that it meets the community's goals. And so we do those two things sort of in partnership together to make sure that we end up at the end with a successful proposal. This also, I mean, this is not an auction. This would be something that would be, so they actually would not be selling the land. We don't do a fee sale of property at EDC. So that's part of the process that we're also going to be doing is providing a little bit more clarity about how these processes unfold. What is an RFP? What is that? What is a request for proposal? How are those selections made? How is the developer designated? So that people can understand this is what they said they're worried about, and then we can give more clarity about how the process actually unfolds.
The next question I have is that I heard nothing. I know a lot of low income people came to that meeting, and I hear nothing about serving the low income areas, keeping things for the low income. See, the Armory is a big project, huge project. We know that. How will we keep it in the low income? Whatever you guys decide, whatever they decide to put in there, how we keep it where low income people can enjoy the Armory as well, because we all know, sometimes when they build these things, they start going, oh, we in COVID, we in this and everything, the prices get sky high, and the people of the Bronx can enjoy whatever you guys decide to put in the Armory. How can we keep it where low income people can enjoy this as well as middle class? Because sometimes people on public assistance, they don't have jobs, they don't have this, they don't have that. So how can they enjoy it with their kids? Whatever you decide to put in, I don't know, but whatever you decide to put in there, how can the low income people enjoy it as well? I hear what you guys saying, we're gonna do this, we're gonna have this, but we all know, once they get in play, things got a tendency of turning around. It got a tendency of, they said this at these meetings, and then they said that, and then you do the other. How can we stop that from happening? Hello?
Oh, sorry. I thought, Inder, you want to take that? You want me to take that?
You can get started.
Sure. I think one way is, I think you brought something up similar at the last time we met was, first is just to make sure that we have to be accountable to you guys. That's one. And so we're going to continue to bring to the board throughout this whole process what we hear, what we understand, what are the community's priorities. We'll certainly make sure that you have a really deep understanding of what's in the vision document, and then making sure that you guys are appropriately involved in the RFP. So I can't say definitively, and I don't want to tell you definitively like what exactly is going to happen, but what we can guarantee is that you guys are going to be with us throughout the entirety of this project.
No, and it's so I'm looking at the comments and I see someone saying about the botanical gardens and Yankee Stadium. Look at Yankee Stadium in the heart of the South Bronx. The tickets are ridiculous. And if you get a ticket, you can't afford it. You be so high, you need 3 binoculars just to see the game, So they build these things in the heart of the South Bronx where there's low income people, where these people don't have enough money, and they charge enormous price.
Sure.
I don't want to see the Armory go down that route. I don't want to see builders and them come in and take over the Armory and start building this, start having prices. No, because then the low income people get sacrificed, which they always do. And that's a sad case.
I'll jump in here if I could. Hi, sorry, I jumped in a little late. Fernando Ortiz here. I was on another community board meeting. I think you have very valid points, and those are things that, we at EDC also are aware of. And, we've been chatting with folks from CB7, who is part of our community working group. I think, there's two things. There's one making sure that you are all, as Nate said, aware of the process, understand what's going into the vision document, because ultimately that will help us and that will guide us in choosing a developer or a development team who will come in and redevelop the Armory. And then I think it's kind of twofold there, right? Once someone has been identified or a group has been identified who with a proposal, I think it's one, the community organizing, and whether it's through another community benefits agreement that that was done with the previous proposal. So the community coming together and saying, hey, development team, this is what we want. And then the other component is holding your elected officials accountable, right? Because at the end of the day, your elected officials have influence and have a say and have power in these decisions, right? So not only EDC being held accountable for the role that we play, but also the elected officials, right? Because they are people who have voting powers. They are people who have, influence power and who help negotiate those terms. So I think it's one, being aware and being involved in the process that we're leading, and post the process, right? Being organizing and as a community, and then on the second part, holding your elected officials accountable and making clear to them, these issues and what are the things that the community, expects in this process.
Yeah, and the vision document is going to be a reflection of what we're hearing from the community, including what you just said right now, which has been echoed across this process. So like that vision document is going to be the guiding framework for decisions we make as the EDC, the decisions that the council member and the congressman and anybody else who's involved in the decision making is going to have to abide by. And the fact that this neighborhood does have strong community organizing means that our feet are going to be held to the fire. So if we make decisions that veer away from what's in the vision document, then like folks are going to let us know and they're not going to let us get away with it. So, I mean, that's essentially like, that's how I see it going down. But we also this isn't to dismiss your concern. Like it's a real concern. There's precedent behind it. We're just trying to do something different. And we can't explicitly outline what that is, but we're just taking a step at a time, making sure that what we're doing is actually economically and culturally connected to the people of the Bronx, and that vice versa, people are coming back and holding us accountable to make sure that we're doing the right thing.
I'm hoping so, because it's just so sad how, they build these things in the Bronx and then, they so pricey, you can't even take your family and enjoy it. Like someone said about the Botanical Gardens, they just started giving free tickets to the Botanical Gardens, and that's sad. It's in the Bronx. It's in the heart of the Bronx. And I don't want that vision for the Armory. It shouldn't be. Right.
I encourage you to, we have we're planning our next public workshop to be January 21st. That date is still to be confirmed, but I would suggest you hold that date, and come out and bring your friends, bring your residents, bring your family, so that it's one thing for you to vocalize that here to us, but we want to hear it as a larger, in the larger process. So do join us in and voice these concerns, and also not just your concerns, right? What your vision or what you think should be happening in the space. So
I have one last question, then I'm going to end this. Even if we come out and vocalize it, and we say, oh, we want this, who has the ultimate decision? Do we have the ultimate decision?
Ultimate decision.
But we can come to meetings and vocalize everything we want. We can vocalize. I can bring 100 people and we say, well, we don't want this. We want y'all to have this. We want to, you can write it down and say, oh, I'll take it in consideration. Who has the ultimate decision?
So the ultimate decision on what's going to be in the vision?
Yes.
First, if you had 100 friends that would have a meeting with us, I'll be there tomorrow. We would love to have.
I'm just hypothetically.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Who has the ultimate decision?
So what we're going to do is we're going to draft the plan. We're going to put together the plan. We're going to make sure that the community work and show it to the community working group. We're going to have a public workshop and we're going to bring it here. And so that you guys can see it in the draft form, you can see it in the final form.
Thank you.
And then that vision, that plan is going to be included in its entirety in the RFP, in the request for proposals.
Thank you.
We will be back. I mean, we will be back here next month, and then we'll be back again.
And I think like Inder said, that I think the community is more aware of the project now than before. I mean, I wasn't part of that process before, so, but we're gonna make our best to keep the community informed, right? That's why we want to host you guys every often as possible, so we can all be on the same page. And Helene has a great pilot point.
Yeah, no, and I mean, just to say it again, I said that kind of in jest, Helene, but if anybody on this committee wants to have us come to meet with your neighbors, people in your tenants associations, if you live in a building, we will be more than happy to do it. That's how we ended up having the residents focus group. That's how we ended up grabbing the youth focus group, is folks who expressed an interest, and we said we would go, and we went. So we would be more than happy to come talk about any aspect of this project to anybody. So just let us know, and I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Oh, I was just about to ask that, because I think I'm gonna invite you to my TA meeting. Thank you.
That'd be wonderful.
Fernando?
One thing I'll add on decision making, right, is that there's going to be various points in which decision making will happen, right? There'll be the vision document that will be released, which, as I mentioned, will be the guiding kind of document for finding a development group, right? Which that decision making, like who that group is, does fall on EDC and others. But then, that proposal is, we've seen with the first proposal, right, where it got cut at the ULERP process, right? And the ULERP process, that's where your council member and your borough president have a vote, right? So they also have a part in the decision-making process. So there's different stages in which decisions are going to be made, and different people. So the vision document is EDC. Helping to find the development group will be EDC, and then getting that to be approved by the city and to get it to become an actual project, that's where your elected officials then have a larger decision-making role. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that. So there's EDC component and which will continue to loop you all in, and then as it goes through public hearing and the ULER process, we'll continue to be involved, but the decision won't be on us at that point. It will move.
And the community board will be able to comment during that ULER
Yes,
as
that
well.
is correct.
Barbara?
Good evening. My question is, since this is a huge structure, are you considering more than one developer for certain parts of the building?
We would probably, typical projects come with, they do have joint ventures that have multiple developers as one project team. I don't know if we would have like a developer responsible for one part of the building and another one just responsible for another part of the building. I don't know if that would just be like feasible, but we've definitely had proposals that have included multiple developers.
Okay, thank you.
Myrna?
I just thought of a question. Can we at least make sure when we put out these RFPs and we get them back, that we actually have people that have the funding to follow through on whatever project is chosen? We'd hate to have to go through all the process, all the work, and then again, they don't really have the money to do the project. So at least let that be part of the process, that they actually have the funding or the financial backers to bring to fruition the product. That's all I have to say.
That will be very key. Anyone else have any questions about the Armory and the process that they're going through now? But I do want to encourage you all to go to these workshops. I think that is like Fernando was saying, there is like a chance for you guys to have a one-on-one conversation with elected officials and other members who are part of this process, so that they can understand what the community or residents around this neighborhood and the Bronx at large want, right, and want to see. And I think that Helene and Myrna and everybody here has very valid points that should be part of that RFP process.
There was a question in the chat about whether the project would go through the Landmarks Preservation Commission. it would, the LPC has to make a determination about its appropriateness through what's called a binding report. And that was done for the previous Kingsbridge National Ice Center proposal. Prior to going through the city's land use approval process, we would go through the Landmark Preservation Commission, and they would make that determination prior to us. So by definition, because it's a city landmark, it will have to go through LPC. Another layer of involvement would be through the state's Historic Preservation Office, because it's on the National Register of Historic Places. If a developer is seeking historic tax credits, which is part of their financing tools, the project would have to go through the State Historic Preservation Office for their review and approval.
Right, and this will happen once an actual project
Once we have a developer, and we have a development proposal that the LPC can actually make a determination on, like what are the changes to the building and its architectural and historical significance. They can make that determination. So you need to have a developer, and that's a public process that involves public hearings at the LPC.
Right, it wouldn't happen within this process that you are going through right now. This is way down the line.
Yeah, but also just to say, we are definitely considering and have spoken with people at LPC to make sure that what we're doing, we're considering its historic nature, and then also making sure that we're giving the public the appropriate information about its landmark status, so that they can understand when we're thinking about the future of the building, how its landmark status influences any future reuse.
Okay, great, thank you.
Sure.
Edgar, you have another question?
No, just a quick comment. Basically, what would happen is kind of like what happened at the project, the church at on Jerome Avenue. You know, they do what they've got to do. They build what they design what they want to design. But at the end of the day, they've got to get confirmation from the community board that, one, it's okay with the community board, and that it keeps the what's the word?
It preserves the landmark.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that would come back to us at the community board.
Yes, in a few years from now.
Hopefully not that long, man.
All right, great. But thank you everyone at EDC. So I guess we'll see you guys maybe not in January, unless you guys want to come in and just give us a quick update, but definitely after the second workshop.
Great.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you, everybody.
we'll reach out to the community board and share the day and the flyer and the location, all the information for the public workshop, so that you are all aware, and hope to see you all there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a happy holidays and a good new year, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye.
You too.
You too.
Same.
Great, so now we're ready for the next presentation. Joe.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Hi, Joe.
Good, how are you, Joe?
Good, good. Good to see everyone. Let me just pull up my presentation. So let me do that and then I'll continue talking. All right, can everyone see that? No, that's not what I want to be sharing. Let's see, sorry.
So this is a presentation on 2850 Webster Avenue, right?
Yes, it is, and I will do it this way. There you go. That should be better. Okay, cool. All right, let me just try to make this a little bigger so you can see. This one. Okay. How does that look? I actually can't see my.
Good.
Good. Okay, great. So, all right. Well, we are going to give you a quick update, and I know Angel said hi. Angel Hernandez from New York Botanical Garden said hi when he jumped on, but the two of us are here to talk about our Webster Avenue project and give you a quick update on the affordable housing lottery and just how things are going, the timing. Also can share, if it's helpful to folks, just a quick few slides on how to access the city's Housing Connect website and kind of some of the information that folks should expect to have ready to submit their application. So talk about the project just to remind everyone and then kind of go through some of that information. So for those of you who don't know or need to be reminded, this is a project that Douglas and Development is working on with New York Botanical Gardens. The site is located at the corner of Bedford Park Boulevard and Webster Avenue. This is a two-phase development. We're here today just to update you on the first phase, which is just off of that corner on Bedford Park on Webster Avenue, a little way away from Bedford Park Boulevard, and we call this 2850 Webster Avenue. And this is a affordable senior housing project that we began construction on in the end of 2020. It will include 188 units, and there's a supers unit, and so 187 rental units. And then of course we are working, and we have worked with the grocery store on the site, Cherry Valley Marketplace, and they will be our ground floor tenant. So there will be no interrupted operations of the grocery store as part of the project, and we're really excited about that. So that's kind of the high level overview of the project. So just senior design elements in general here. We are, we've done a few of these projects at Douglas, so we know what works and some of the big things to have. So handrails in all the hallways, we'll have roll-in showers, we'll have grab bars in the bathrooms. Obviously, we want to make sure that our design really promotes safety throughout the units and throughout the building. And so in the photo you see in this image is from another project we did, but it will be very representative of what we will have in this project. But you could see the roll-in shower, that's kind of flush with the floor and the grab bars and all of that. Reminder on some of the building amenities. So as I already mentioned, our ground floor, our superintendent that will be on site. We will have part-time security that will be 7 hours during the day. We talked about the grocery store. We'll have a laundry room. We'll have a bike parking. We'll have some outdoor recreation space. We'll have the green roof, and we will have over 3,000 square feet of social service space here. And that is being operated by Fordham Bedford Community Services, which obviously does such great work in the community and is really, and actually does this level of services for the projects that they run just around the corner from us. So we're really excited to be partnering with them on this. And then you can see a list of kind of baseline services and the offerings that Fordham Bedford will have here. So they'll connect residents to entitlements, their Social Security, SNAP, things like that. Offer workshops for education on health and medical services. They'll do ESL classes, citizenship assistance, and organize a lot of fun events on site and even off site as well. So we're really excited again to have them on board for this. So that's the general overview of the project. Now on to the marketing. So we began the affordable housing lottery for this project in I think it was the very end of October. So we are just a little over a month into the process now. And the deadline to apply is January 3rd of next year. So there are two ways to apply. First is through the city's website, Housing Connect, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But the other way is by mail. And so in the ad, and I'm sure you've all seen many ads for these affordable housing buildings, but there are directions here on how to request a mail application, which is you could go and Fordham Bedford will has those applications available, and then obviously instructions on how to mail those applications. You know, I know Fordham Bedford has fielded a lot of questions and has received a lot of mail applications. So I think with the senior building, we should expect to have a lot of mail applications, and that's certainly what we're seeing. A little side note, you know, today, Angel and I and some others were speaking with Councilmember Felice's office and, you know, giving them this kind of update as well. And they also said that they have people coming to their office and that they've been helping folks complete applications. So that's really great to hear that, you know, folks know kind of how to get information and that there's a great network in the community helping everyone get their applications in here. So just another thing to point out on this ad, age 62 and older, that's consistent for a lot of the city funded affordable senior housing buildings. And then you see the income, I'll say maximums and income limits here. And so and we talked about this last time I was here, you could make $0 or all the way up to these income limits that you see here, depending on household size. And then the way your rent is structured is that your rent will always be 30% of your income. And so different people in the building will be paying different rent, and that's because the project is receiving project-based Section 8 vouchers. So future tenants don't have to have their own tenant voucher. The building itself has the vouchers, and so that makes it really easy for a lot of folks just on that administrative level as well. So this is the ad. Now, I could go over because the few slides I have on Housing Connect, I think I'll do it relatively quickly. Although if anyone has any questions or wants me to stop and explain something, by all means. The link here, and I think, you know, especially if they're, the community board staff, if you're getting inquiries about this, I'm happy to send you this presentation as well afterwards. So, you have the information, you have the links, all of that. But the basic Housing Connect link, the big thing here is everyone needs to create an account and register for an account, put all their information on there that's asked for. And then it's really easy just to apply to whatever buildings you want. So kind of skipping through here. So basic household information, your address, if you are currently homeless or if you're in a NYCHA property, if you're currently receiving rental assistance, and then these housing choices sections if you're interested in re-rentals and resales. And that just has nothing to do with our project at Webster, but just for folks' general interest in other projects as well. And then there's the household member information, and this would need to be done for each member of the household, but all the personal information that you see here, your name, date of birth, social security, whether you're a student, whether you're disabled, your race, ethnicity, gender, pronouns, income, so your employment information, whether you're receiving government benefits like social security, retirement, disability, and so it's a lot of paperwork that folks will need to have at their disposal to be putting in all of this information. And then finally, assets. So all of your checking, savings, retirement, brokerage, real estate assets. There are asset limitations for being eligible for these buildings. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but basically the gist is that they don't want people who own property or who have very significant assets to be applying for or kind of to get into these buildings, because that's not the intent of the program. So keep that in mind as well. And so then once you set up your profile, then you just go back to that homepage, say click on Get Started, see all of the projects. There I have highlighted our Webster project, and then you just click Apply, and it's that easy. So the hard part is getting all of your documentation, because it's like tax season, right? It's like you have to gather everything, and you never want to do that, but that's the hardest part. But once you do it, it's all there, and it's great for everyone to have for any other project they want to apply to as well. And as I said, if folks aren't able to do this online, They certainly can submit a paper application. And again, the folks at Ford and Bedford could help. I know the council member's office is very happy to help anybody who needs assistance with completing the applications. And yeah, so that's kind of that. But happy to answer any questions that folks have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Any questions?
Thank you, Joel, so much. This is Sandra. I just want to add that people can have money in the bank. It's just that they count the interest on those that money in the bank. So just because you have assets, money in your retirement, etc.,
Yeah.
it doesn't count against you. So don't feel free to please apply, and that just interest will be counted.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Barbara?
I have a question about the supermarket. You mentioned that it would take the lower floor. Is that going to be a permanent site for it? Or after the second building goes up, will it be expanded there too? What are your plans?
The latter. So the ground floor of our space has just under 13,000 square feet that's dedicated for the grocer. And once the second building is complete, there's an additional over 8,000 square feet that will be dedicated towards the grocer, and the two spaces will combine into one large space that brings the square footage of the grocer up to above 20,000, which is the same or similar square footage to what they currently have.
Okay, so in other words, the two buildings will be adjacent or adjourned to one another?
They will be directly abutting one another, and so there will be, it really won't, on the ground floor, that store won't look like you're in two different buildings. It will all look like one big store.
Thank you.
Of course.
And do you have a opening date for the supermarket or not yet?
For the supermarket, that probably won't be until later in 2023. Actually, though, thanks for asking about general timelines. So while the lottery is closing January 3rd, we are anticipating to have our temporary certificate of occupancy by, well, I'll just say early April at this point, and then hopefully having people move in shortly thereafter.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And the lease up process will take anywhere from 6 to 9 months, or more. Hopefully not, but you never know. So, but we are, but we're really excited to get that part started.
Thanks so much, Joel, for coming in, and we're all curious and excited about the project, and we really thank you for accepting our invitation.
Of course, anytime. And I'd like to say too, if you all are getting any questions about kind of logistics or just details about the lottery, I know we kind of only have a few weeks left, and definitely want to make sure that everyone from the community who wants to apply and can apply does so. So feel free to forward me any questions that you have. I could always triage them to Ford and Bedford or whoever else. So happy to help.
Okay, great. And thank you for showing us. This was very helpful for people to see the snapshots of the website. Sometimes I guess people feel that it might be unfriendly, but it's very straightforward and simple. Like you said, after you create the profile.
After you create your profile and you do all the hard work of getting your tax information, yes. And yeah, and I created my own profile to do that. So you know. But and Eric, I'll send you this presentation just in case that's helpful as a reference to anybody.
Yes, thank you. And definitely, I think that you know, the staff, if anyone reaches out to them at the office or by email, they will be able to help them with getting set up as well.
Perfect. That's great to hear.
Eric, I see a quick question about what type of social services Ford and Bedford will be providing. Joel, can you give us a quick?
Sure. So sorry, I missed that question.
Slide.
Is it the questions about what type of social services Ford and Bedford will be providing?
Right, yes.
Let me jump back to that.
Yeah, I saw it earlier there.
There you go. So,
Okay.
so the idea with this building in general and this housing program is that the residents here are, it's independent living. It's not assisted living. It's not a supportive housing building where there's really a need for deep services. So all the folks here, it's independent living, and even with the formerly homeless referrals, it's all folks who are kind of ready to live independently. So we call it light touch services. So it's really about connecting residents to resources. So that's why it's connecting them, if you have here, connecting them to or helping them fill out their benefits applications, like their Social Security and their SNAP benefits and other things like that, connecting them to other services in the neighborhood, whether they be healthcare services or mental health services, whatever they are. And then on top of that, there would be programming. I mean, we have 3,000 square feet of space in the building. We'll have kind of more like flexible spaces, like for a lounge area and for classes, maybe like a dance class, things like that. So there will be a lot of activity going on, and all of the social service space and the social service office space. So where we kind of like one-on-one intake meetings or small group meetings, combined with the lounge spaces in the common areas and a laundry room, are all on the second floor of the building. So you're going to have this really nice hub of activity where people will be spending time. And even on that second floor, there's a little area to walk outside too. So it's going to be really wonderful that it's all there, and it's actually not on like in the cellar. I think sometimes you'll see those kinds of spaces in the cellar, but we're really happy that it's really part of the building and has great visibility and great light, and will really be a centerpiece of the project.
Great. And anyone interested in volunteering or maybe a job opportunity should reach out to Fort and Bedford.
That's right. Yeah. So we on my end, we're not involved in the staffing of that at all. And that will really be Fort and Bedford Community Services.
Okay. Janina, if you email Jade, she might be able to put you together with Fort and Bedford. Her email is in the chat. All right, any other questions about this project that's coming to a close? I see that Edgar had a question about local hiring. If you guys have any statistics on that you could share with the board, that will be helpful.
Yes. So in terms of our construction work and local hiring.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have a little under 20% of our workforce is from the Bronx. And things that we track the local hiring. We also track our MWBE kind of participation for contractors. And that's actually a requirement of our financing with the state, is to have a certain percentage of our costs go towards MWBE contractors and subcontractors. And those goals, it's kind of combined with the two, we're over 30% of our construction costs have gone to MWBE contractors as well.
Okay, great. All right, anyone else has a question for Joel?
All right, well, thank you, everyone. And again, look forward to any questions that come up, and we'll be in touch when we're nearing completion of this project and get to invite you all to fun ribbon cutting.
Awesome, thank you.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. Appreciate the time.
Have a good night.
You too.
Okay,
Bye.
good night.
Earl, happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yeah.
Happy holidays, yes.
Good night. Thank you.
Ted, do you have any updates for us from HPD?
No, not at this time. I mean, we're happy, of course, that this project has gotten to this point as well. So, it means that the project itself is roughly 2/3 three-quarter, excuse me, 2/3, 3/4 finished. So, that's always good.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ted. Anyone here from CCHR? Any updates on that, Orlando?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Yeah, no, don't really have any new updates, housing or land use related, but since I believe I missed last month, we did have a general update to our law that I'm sure some people saw about the salary transparency additions to the city law. So just to give a quick brief update on that, the city human rights law obviously enforces or protects against discrimination and harassment in employment and housing and public accommodations. So a recent addition to the law when it comes to employment is that all New York City employers, when posting job ads, have to basically post a beginning and an end salary as part of that job ad. So we should no longer be seeing on job ads statements like $15 an hour and up, or up to $50,000 a year, right? There's got to be a range with a beginning and an end number, right? If there is no range and the salary just is what it is, then that's fine. But if employers anticipate, like most employers do, wanting to kind of give a flexible range based on skills and qualifications and experience and different kind of things, they have to provide both the high and low numbers on the job advertisement to be in compliance with the law. So, that's new and that's important part of our law now. What I'll do is I will post a fact sheet.
And that's for both private and public, or
Yes.
just public?
Any employer in New York City with 4 or more employees, or someone who's going to employ at least one home health care worker or domestic worker. And that 4 or more number, all of those employees do not have to work in New York City, but they have to have at least one person working in New York City, and that person has to have either applied for the job or be working there and be discriminated against in some way based on that salary transparency. If that's the case, they can bring a case to us. Yeah.
I see. Interesting.
So I'm gonna post the fact sheet in the chat, just so everyone has it for reference. And that's pretty much it on my end.
Okay, great. Thank you, Orlando.
Thanks.
And thanks for coming to the meetings.
Yep.
Anyone from city planning? No, okay. I think that was it in terms of the extent of the agenda. Anyone has any comments or questions in general for the board? Yes, Brian.
This is just for general questions, correct?
Yes.
Okay. I know this wasn't on the agenda tonight, but has there been any updates, or is there anything upcoming in regards to the Fordham Landing project? And how are you, by the way, Eric?
Good, doing good. No, that's what we were hoping. The city planning was on the call to kind of share any information about that project, because we know it's still going through their office right now.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Anyone else? Any questions for the board in general or about housing? Okay. So MJ, yes, I think there would need to be rezoning. That's why it's going through city planning right now. All right, well, if there's not any more questions, want to wish everyone a happy holidays, happy new year, and hopefully we all can make it to the tree lighting on Thursday, right, Barbara?
Yes, 6 o'clock Thursday evening. We hope to see everybody.
Barbara, it's in the same place?
Yes, Bainbridge and Marshall and Parkway.
The
Yes,
same place that we was at last year, right?
yes, same place.
Okay. Because I know they're gonna need some volunteers, right?
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, great. Well, if that's all, then we get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
Thank you. Have a
Good
good night,
night.
everybody.
See you in the new year, hopefully.
Good night.
God willing.
Our next meeting will be January 10th.
Okay.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello, Jahira.